Claire had delivered hard news before, but this one was different. And she had known it since the moment her boss closed that conference room door on Friday and said a name she had personally put on the org chart. What she was about to do on Monday morning had happened before. Not just to her, to a lot of people. Every few decades, the world shifts. Not gradually, not gently, but suddenly and drastically. We went from walking into a bank to deposit a check to taking a picture of it. From mailing bills to paying them online in seconds. From hailing a cab to using an app. Each time the wave came, people lost the version of a world they knew and trusted. And each time the world kept moving. But this is what never makes it into the history books. Inside every one of those waves, there were rooms. Quiet rooms, where one person sat across from another and had to say something that no amount of corporate language could make okay. This is the story of one of those rooms, and the woman who had to walk into it. Claire had spent over 20 years in marketing. She had outlasted 3 CEOs, 2 reorgs, and 1 acquisition that nearly dissolved the department she had spent 4 years building. She was not someone who flinched easily. But that Saturday evening in April, when her daughter turned 8, Claire was somewhere else entirely. The living room was full of balloons, cousins, and the kind of chaos that comes with a kid's birthday party. Her daughter was at the center of it, completely absorbed in the moment, completely unaware of anything beyond the cake being brought out from the kitchen. Her daughter leaned in, cheeks full of air, eyes squeezed shut, making a wish. Claire watched her, and all she could think about was Monday. She had heard every version of the advice: be present, live in the moment, put the phone down, be where your feet are. She had probably forwarded some of it herself at some point. None of it was available to her right now. Because some weight doesn't respond to advice. It just sits there, in the middle of a moment that should feel simple. Her phone was face down on the table. It had been that way since Friday at 4:47 p.m., when her boss closed the conference room door and told her the company had finalized a licensing agreement with an AI content platform. The function would be absorbed. The headcount would be eliminated. She needed to tell Ryan Walsh by the end of day Monday. Claire nodded, asked 2 questions, walked back to her desk, picked up her bag, and drove home in silence. 8 months earlier, Claire had made Ryan a promise. Not in writing, not in any document that HR would ever see, but in the way that matters more than documents. She had found him at a competing firm. On a Tuesday afternoon, she sent him a message that was 4 sentences long and told him she had been watching his work and wanted to talk. They met for coffee 2 weeks later, and she laid it out. She was building something, a content strategy function, in-house, that would finally give the brand a real voice instead of briefing it out to agencies who understood the logo but not the company. She needed someone to lead it, to build the messaging frameworks, own the content direction, develop a small team around him over time. She told him this was not a lateral move. She told him this was a chance to build something from nothing and put his name on it. Ryan had been cautious. He had stability where he was, a team he trusted, a commute that didn't eat his mornings. He asked good questions, and she answered all of them. She went back to her boss twice to sharpen the offer. She sent him a voice note on a Sunday evening, which she almost never did for anyone, because she wanted him to hear in her voice that she meant every word of it. 3 weeks later, he accepted. And for 8 months, he had shown up and delivered. Every single week. The party wound down around 10. Claire cleaned up slowly after everyone left. She folded the tablecloth, threw away the paper plates, and stood at the kitchen sink for a long time, staring at nothing. She thought about asking HR to handle it. She thought about sending an email Sunday night so he'd have the weekend to process before they spoke. She even thought about calling in sick. She ran through every version where she wasn't the one sitting across from Ryan on Monday morning. And then she stopped, because she knew exactly who had sent that 4-sentence message on a Tuesday afternoon. She knew who had met him for coffee, who had sent that voice note on a Sunday, and who had told him this was worth leaving his stability for. That was her. And if she was the one who brought him into this, then she had to be the one sitting in that room too. Not because her title required it, And not because HR had put her name on the notification, but because she had made him a promise, and the only honest thing left to do was to show up and say it herself. The guilt didn't lift. The shame of being the face of a decision she hadn't made and couldn't reverse didn't go anywhere. She just decided to carry it into the room instead of away from it. Monday morning, she was at her desk by 8. Ryan came in at 8:15, coffee in hand, bag over one shoulder, the way he always did. She met him in the hallway before he reached his office. 15 minutes, she said. Sure, he said, like it was any other conversation. She went in first, sat down, looked at the table, breathed. He came in and sat across from her. She looked at him directly, and she didn't wait. She told him his role was being eliminated, that the company had brought in an AI platform that would take over the content strategy function, that it was effective immediately, that she was so sorry. She watched his face move through several things at once. He was quiet for a moment, and then he wasn't. He told her he had turned down another offer for this role, that he had moved his family closer to the office because of what she had promised him, that he had believed her, that she had painted a picture, and now 8 months later she was sitting across from him telling him the canvas was gone. He said she had ruined his stability. He said he had been fine before she reached out on that Tuesday. Claire did not move. She didn't tell him she had found out Friday. She didn't tell him she had spent the entire weekend unable to sleep. She didn't explain that she had not made this decision, that she had no power to stop it, that she had fought for his headcount twice before and would have fought again if there had been anything left to fight. None of that was what he needed from her right now. So she stayed. She let him say everything that was in him to say, because the room did not belong to her in that moment. It belonged to him. And knowing the difference between those two things, when everything in you is pulling towards self-defense, when the guilt and the shame are sitting right there on the surface, when you could so easily make it about your own pain instead of his, that is not a small thing. That is everything. The wave that took Ryan's role will not be the last one. AI is not the end of the story any more than the ATM was, or the internet, or the app that replaced the cab. The world will keep shifting. New functions will emerge that we cannot predict from where we are standing right now, and most of us will adapt the way we always have. But the rooms will keep happening too. The quiet rooms where one person sits across from another and has to say something that no language can make painless. What Claire did in that room was not heroic in any visible way. She did not save Ryan's job. She did not fix what was broken. She just refused to let her own fear and guilt become more important than his need to be heard. Leading without distortion is not about having the right words. It is about staying in the room when every part of you wants to leave. It is about letting someone's pain land without rushing to redirect it back toward yourself. It is about showing up as a human being first, even when the situation is asking you to hide behind a role. The wave is coming whether we are ready for it or not. The only thing any of us can control is who we choose to be when it arrives.